right, the Senate Committee on Human Services will come to order. Welcome. It is April 11th. It's our first day after not having bills in the committee, which is exciting. We'll have members coming and going throughout the hearing. The House is in session right now. There are a couple of House members that are hoping to join us as they come out. So I wanted to start with, and Laura, are you available to do the slides? So I wanted to start with some opening remarks, and I guess I should first open up our informational hearing on out-of-state placements. So I wanted to thank you all for taking time to come to this hearing today about some of Oregon's most vulnerable kids. And special thanks and shout out to Senator Ron Wyden, who I understand is also watching this as it's being live streamed. These are kids who have been placed out of sight, and it is my intention that we are going to ensure that they are no longer out of mind. We first started planning this hearing in February to learn more about out-of-state placements. It was a new idea. It has been a thoughtful and deliberative process, and I'm grateful to the many people who have spent hours researching these issues to prepare for today, with extra gratitude to Jamie and Laura and Lena, who have filled binders full of information. I'm especially grateful to Leah Horner and Sarah Fox, who have been extraordinarily responsive to every information request within their ability to respond. We will hear from Sarah later, and I hope everyone will keep in mind that we are so lucky to have her. She is new to her job, and she has quickly shown herself to be a fierce advocate for our children. However, developments over the last week have made it clear that this issue and this hearing is urgent. We now know we have specific kids of ours in danger today while we sit here. This is not acceptable, and we must see action immediately. In January, Lauren Dake of OPB began raising the question of whether kids were being sent out of state. I'll go back to the first one. Stunned by the number of kids identified in her report, I requested a list of the facilities where our kids were placed. This issue of kids being away had never come up before in any of our hearings or discussions or presentations. As you can see, Oregon's rate of out-of-state placement has been growing at an alarming rate. Today, we have 85 kids in care, more than double what we had at the beginning of 2018. We are currently spending about $30,000 a day in general fund every day for out-of-state placements. Over a biennium, if this continues, that would be a program worth $21.7 million in unmatched general fund. Now you can move to the next slide. This is a new problem that really began in the middle of 2017 and under current DHS leadership. What is unclear is whether there was an intentional decision to place kids out of state, or if there were simply no controls or monitoring on the rapid growth of that program over the last year. That's part of what we are here to learn. When I received the list of providers, I immediately set out to learn about them. One quick Google search set off alarm bells. Facility after facility turned up reports of licensing violations, arrests, injuries, sexual assaults, inappropriate restraints, and other problems. In fact, one of the facilities had so many concerns that our neighboring state, Washington, pulled all of its kids out last fall after a Disability Rights Washington report found appalling conditions. Our children remained there. While there has been a great deal of discussion about Clarinda and Sequel, we also have kids placed in another for-profit vendor named Acadia on multiple sites. As you can see, can you scroll back up to the top for a moment? As you can see, here are some of the problems and facilities that our kids are served in today. Each of these are places that we have kids. As you see at the top, Indiana has stopped placing their kids there because of the conditions of the facility. At Rolling Hills, where we still have one child, they had 26 unreported patient deaths. There's a lawsuit in Oklahoma has removed all of its children from that program. Acadia, Montana, at the bottom, is of particular interest because this is where the girl that Lauren Dake reported on yesterday is currently placed. And you can continue scrolling up now. At 9 years old, this girl was subject to chemical restraint to manage typical childhood behaviors, including through intramuscular injections. After DHS dropped her off last October, no one besides her mother and attorney have been to see her. There has been no third-party caseworker. There has been no DHS visit. As of yesterday, nearly a month after DHS was first notified of inappropriate use of chemical restraint, DHS had not put a staff person on the ground to check on her, though I understand there is someone on their way there today, and that's good. We will hear from this little girl's attorney later in the hearing. What is disappointing is to see that concerns about Acadia, Montana are not new, and that Acadia's problem of inappropriate use of medications to control children was known. And that is, if you scroll up, you'll see that that is listed as well as a problem, and that's up in OLIS to check out. So back to the very first slide. It had been my hope in putting this hearing together that this would be a day of action. I hoped we'd hear from DHS about on-the-ground efforts to bring kids home. Hopefully that will happen today. We need more action than a roundtable discussion. We need people on the ground checking on each of these children today and getting them home. We need to know who approved the placement of these children, why mandatory child abuse reports were not made, and how it is that we do not have accurate clinical assessments of children placed in locked psychiatric facilities. I have asked Marilyn and Fairbours to share that information with us. I also hope we will learn about the oversight of these programs, including how we monitor third-party contracts that are crucial to child safety. Lauren Dake put in a public records request for these signed, executed contracts a month ago, and I have asked that those signed, dated contracts for third-party visitors to each of the facilities in which our kids are placed be provided to the committee today. I thank DHS in advance for the materials. After we hear from Marilyn and Fairbours, we will hear from others. We will hear from Sequel Youth and Family Services about what programs they offer and their history with Oregon. Disability Rights Oregon and the Oregon Council on Developmental Disabilities will talk about why Oregon stopped placing kids with IDDD in segregated congregate care institutions and why Child Welfare's decision to overturn that value system is problematic. We will hear from the attorney of the little girl I mentioned a moment ago. We will hear from a child psychiatrist with experience managing inpatient units about the use of restraint and the hallmarks of bad care. We will hear from a retired inspector of out-of-state programs that worked to bring 800 Illinois kids home when they were placed out of state. And we will finally hear concluding remarks from a real expert, a foster youth alum. The work of child welfare is hard. There is no denying that. It is very hard. And the Department of Human Services does good work, really good work, every day. But something here has gone very, very wrong. We cannot ignore it, and we have to keep this issue front and center until we are all satisfied that each of these kids is safe and in an appropriate place. I agree that there are some times when a child needs a restrictive, intensive placement. I also agree that sometimes those placements will be out of state, but given the size of our state, it should not be 85 kids. It is time for us to fix this, and I hope today is the first step towards setting the stage for rapid progress and that we learn how to avoid these tragic, unjust missteps in the future. So with that, we've got a pretty long panel. We are going to go until 5 o'clock. Does anybody have anything before we dive further in? All right, I think we're starting with Sarah Fox and Marilyn Jones and Fairbours Pakseresht.